third installment of the Grand Prix 3D car. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies and welcome to part 3 of the Grand Prix 3D 1/10 scale retro RC car kit building. So this is the car that is being designed by Andy Cooke. So over here I've got a little tablet with the website. Got that here so I can open up the manual so I can follow along. So if you just go down to his website, you'll be able to find one of his cars and have a closer look at what he has to offer. So in the meantime, we've already built the front bulkhead, which I have here. It has a steering servo, which is a little micro servo already installed, and we just fitted on the head of the servo. So where the servo horn would normally be, it's a gear, and that's going to drive this steering column. So you've got pinion gear here, which is going to drive the tie rods to the front, and then there's also an attachment here which will attach to the steering wheel, which gives the impression of the driver turning the wheel as well. So he's got flexible arms and he's going to be turning like so. Now we're up to doing the front shocks. So I've got the bag ready here. Let's just get to that particular point. So here's the manual onto the front shocks. And where I stopped last week was I needed some diff grease, which I have now right here. Got some Yokomo ball diff grease. And we'll get moving. So I've got my little glasses here, helps me see what I'm doing. Put those on. Okay. So on the manual here, it's got a description of all the parts. Let's empty that out onto our bench. All right, so we've got the springs. Might lay this all out so we can see what we're doing. All that. Shock bodies. All right, so I found my shock body there. Just rolled away for a sec. All right, we'll get our bases there. Some thicker collars, thinner collars. Attachments, clear tubes. Okay, and then we've got our pack of screws. Pop them in there so it's easy to keep a track of. Okay. All right, let's move on to the actual building. Okay, so we need to put a little bit of ball diff grease. See, inside the tube. So we've got some little silicone tube here. That's going to go inside the shock cylinder. So basically we're just going to lubricate the inside of it so that the screw can push smoothly in and out. Okay, so you can use shock body cap or tweezers to temporarily push the silicone tube fully down. Okay, right, so first thing we'll do is, I've got my little skewer here. I'm just going to grab the tiniest amount of grease. Just smear it on the insides of these tubes. If you don't use a grease, it would just basically bind inside and give you a very funny or a very tight movement in there. I think that's going to be enough. So both of these grease, pop them inside the cylinders. Might just use a cap, just push it in. Like so. Do the same for the other one. Okay, keep the grease to the side. I don't think we'll be needing that again. Okay, so we're going to use the black 2.5mm bolt. I'm going to push it through. So this is basically the shock shaft. Alright, so I'm going to push them all the way through. Actually, it's all tight there, so I'm going to drill it out. We'll open that up with a drill bit. Just get the right fitting for this drill bit here. Alright. So basically here we need to have those quite nice and free, I think. It's actually quite tight. Okay, so that's actually quite tight, which apparently is not a problem. So I'll screw it all the way down. Okay. Oh, it's too big. Okay, so there's one cylinder with the shock shaft in. Okay, so I'm just rotating it a few times and that'll probably open up the threads a little bit. And now we'll put on the spring and then screw in the shock retainer. So just being careful not to over tighten that. Okay. Okay. All right, that one's done. Alright, so that's all done up as well. Okay, so these coils here are just spring tensioners. So we don't need to use them as yet. They're a tuning option. Alright, so we've got that. We've got the springs together. And now we're going to do the cap. Alright, so let's see. This is going to hold this all together. Just be nice to open this hole up a little bit. So, alright, we'll just screw these in, and this is holding on the shock cap. Oh. Here's a small driver here. Okay, there's one done. Do the same thing over here. Okay, there we go. All right, 2 front shocks, complete. All right, so now we just need to open up these holes to make sure they're going to be free. So, drill out the shock body cap and shock spring retainer holes with the 2mm bit. So this is a 2mm bit. It's probably going to be easier if I had this inside a pin vise. Oh, not that one. Right. And drilling this out is just going to make sure that the shock action is going to be smooth on the screw. Alright, so that one. Alright, so that's top. Bottom's pretty loose already. Alright, there you go. 2 front shocks complete. All right, they look the same. Okay, so that means we're going to the next section. So we've done shocks, so we're going to start with, oops, that's not what I want, front suspension. Okay, so what do we need here? So we've got the front bulkhead, we need the chassis, and we're going to need some of these bolts, 2x20s and nylocks. Okay, so let's find our chassis. Alright, so there's the chassis right there. Really nicely moulded part of the car. Alright, let's put these aside here. The shocks here as well. Alright, I've got my bulkhead. Now where I'm going to find these screws. Screws are probably going to be in the spares pack I put away before. Okay, so M2 nuts by 2. Okay, so they're going to go in here. Alright, let's see if we can poke this in here. So these fit in on an angle. Just be careful that we don't damage it at all. Okay, so there's one there. Oops. Over on that side, I just home this in a bit more. That's flush. Okay, that's in. So 2x20. These look like 2x20s. And again, these could be 2x20s. Okay, I think they're going to be the longer ones. All right, so what we're doing here. All right, so we're going to mate this up to the chassis. Okay, and let's have a look. So screw needs to penetrate through here. All right, so that'll be these longer ones. All right, let's poke that through. Actually, it's a bit tight, so I think I'll open those up with a drill bit here. Make sure these go through. Actually, I think these are the bigger ones, aren't they? It's 2 mil. Okay, we'll use a bigger drill bit to open up the hole. So just need to drill out these holes to make sure that the screws don't bind and it actually tightens up correctly onto the bulkhead. This is something you just need to check from time to time as we go throughout the build. Okay, just make sure these slide in freely. Yep, that's good. Both sides is good. Alright. Alright, so that's gone through very easily. Alright, so I just press these screws back a bit so I can fit the bulkhead again. And we'll start tightening it up. Alright, so before I nip it up all the way tight, let's get this end biting as well. You can see how the gap is disappearing there as we're tightening it up. Same on this side. Okay, so let's just nip it up until it's nicely tight. Okay, feels good. Right, got a nice big assembly here now. And while we were making this up, it was important to make sure that the servo lead didn't get nipped up there, so it wouldn't be damaged. Okay, good stuff. All right, so we're going to get into the actual suspension now. So let's move on to the suspension bag. All right, so that's quite a large bag here. The front suspension, bag number 3. Put these spare screws back here. All right, let's check out all the bits that we need. Okay, so we've got our hardware. There's quite a few other bits and pieces, but in this step, we just need the front arms. All right, so there's large arms there, lower arms, upper arms. We've got the shocks, they're over here that we built before. What have we got there? We need 2x18s. Only 2x8, 2x8s. Alright, so let's do that here. 2x8s. Oh, which one's a 2x8? Let's see, was this all this one? Steel rod hinge pins. Alright, so we've got those here. Okay, and the longer screws are 2x12s. Alright, so hopefully they're them. Well, we'll find out in a moment. Alright, so what we've got here. So we need to drill out one of these holes. A 2mm drill bit. I'm guessing that goes through here. Okay. So just got to open up these holes. Okay, that one's done. One more arm here. Okay, let's just make sure the hinge pin slides in. Yep. Oh, it's a tight fit. Okay, so we're going to be fitting the front shocks into these. So just to make sure we get the right orientation. Let's just make sure that this is correct. Okay, I think I've done something wrong here. Let's spin this around. I think I've got these shock caps the wrong way around. Alright, so those ones are going there. Well, that makes a bit more sense. Alright, let's spin this one around as well. Should have been paying more attention, I think. Easy enough to fix. Okay, so let's try that again. So this is going to fit into here. And then we have a pin that goes through and mates these together. Oh, maybe I should have checked if the hole was open enough. Oh, the hole needs a slight opening, a little bit tight. Okay, let's try that again. It should go through smoothly now, I think. Alright, there we go. So I've got the shock on the lower arm. It's rotating now. Just move these out of the way, make it a bit easier for you to see. Alright, so we've got one shock on the arm, and we'll do the other side. There we go. Okay, so we've got the other one. Right, so we've got our lower arms with the shocks mounted now. And we're going to prepare to attach them onto the chassis. So we've got 2x12. Okay, so look here. So we've got this orientation here like this. So this is going to fit in here. Alright, so this needs to be drilled out a little bit. Just to open up the hole slightly. Okay. Just make sure I've got the right size screw. Probably doesn't feel like it's not enough meat on that, so let's go for this one here. Alright, so there needs to be about 1 mil of clearance here for it to move properly, and that'll leave around about 5 mil. Of thread to bite in. Okay, so we'll go with that one. We'll go for the slightly longer ones here. Alright. Okay, so we'll leave it a little bit loose. We can always adjust the tension later, but that's moving smoothly, so that's good. And we'll do exactly the same thing for the other side. There you go. Just make sure it's all lined. All right, pop that in there. All right, 2 lower arms. So you can see there. They're working now. Shocks are attached. And we'll move on to the next step. So I need to push these in until only 3 mil of this pin is protruding out the front, which suggests to me that I need to drill that a bit more. So just pull this out. Okay, so I should do it now. I'm going to find a way of pressing this in without doing too much damage. So I use this sort of hammer effect. Okay, so it's homed in. Alright, so they're in tight now. Alright, so the hinge pins are further in. So you just have to go through the build from time to time just to double check things. Sometimes when things feel a little bit tight, you just need to adjust it and may need to drill it out a little bit. But with a little bit of persuasion, that's all working fine. Alright. Okay, so we move on to the next step, which is number 5. We're going to start working on the upper arms. Okay, so we're going to drill out those upper arms. So same sort of thing. Drill these through here. Make sure these are smooth. And then we'll do again for this side. Okay. All right, so we've got those drilled through. All right, so same sort of thing. We're going to have these pressed in, and let's just make sure these holes are opened up. Oh, they're for screws. So actually, there's these ones here. Let's drill that out a little bit. And this one here. Okay. Now these two arms look the same left to right. So let's just pop this through here. So the hinge pins are going in to the top arm. Just slide that in. Right, so we just have to make sure that as the top arm's going on, you'll be able to attach it to the shock there. Same with the other side. I guess we're going to push those in first and then attach it to the shock. Okay, so again, they need to be protruding just about 3 mil. So at the moment they're protruding quite a bit. I'll just give them a light hammer again. That's just to home in those hinge pins into the bulkhead. All right, so they're homed in now. All right, so just going to make sure that they're moving. Okay, so the arm's actually moving, and then we're going to be attaching those to the front shocks. Now the front shocks are quite tight at the moment because the shock shafts are actually threaded. I can only assume that that's going to ease off. If it doesn't, then I'll be taking those off and I'll open up those holes a little bit so it actually moves a bit easier. But for the moment, there is a bit of flex in there anyway. We'll see how it handles, and if it does need a bit of work, then we'll adjust it as we go later on. Okay, so we're going to need these screws to hold in the shock on the top, and that one is a, let's see, 2x8. Okay, so there's these little ones here. So I'm just going to screw this in just to keep the tops of the shocks in place. Okay, so there's one done already. Okay, there we go. So here we have it. We have the shocks in place. Got upper arms, lower arms. Got the chassis here. Steering bulkhead is all in place. And it's actually starting to look like a car now. Looks quite nice. Okay, so that is our third installment of the Grand Prix 3D car. Now I hope you enjoyed watching that. So as you can see there, it's quite a bit there now. It's going to be quite a bit longer by the time we have the engine, gearbox, all that attached. So let's see, up next is going to be the front suspension plate and other components. And we'll get onto that in the next installment. So thank you for watching. It's a really unique car. It's coming together. Slightly different building techniques from what I'm used to. But once you get used to the overall design, I mean, it's a bespoke car. Every single car is going to be slightly different. It just needs a little bit of tailoring, and it's going to come up very nicely, I'm sure. So thanks again, and I'll see you with the next installment.